Welcome back to Relationship Rescue, the podcast that helps you build stronger connections by first rescuing the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. Today's episode is a powerful one. I'm joined by Dr. Ingrid Clayton, a licensed clinical psychologist, trauma therapist, and author of the best selling memoir, Believing Me: Healing from Narcissistic Abuse and Complex Trauma. Dr. Clayton has been featured in Oprah Daily, Psychology Today, and Red Table Talk. And she's known for speaking truth to the often invisible pain of emotional abuse, gaslighting, and what she calls the most misunderstood trauma response of all, fawning. In this conversation, we unpack everything from the difference between narcissistic behavior and emotional immaturity to how unresolved childhood trauma keeps us stuck in cycles of people pleasing, codependency, and toxic love. We also talk about what real healing looks like. Not the glossy Instagram version, but the raw, vulnerable, day by day reclaiming of your voice, your body, and your boundaries. If you've ever felt like your kindness is being used against you or wondered why breaking free from unhealthy patterns feels so lonely, this episode will resonate deeply. Let's dive in. Ingrid, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I love your books. I've read your books, Believing Me,
Mhm.
Fawning, and Recovering Spirituality. You are a psychiatrist and a trauma therapist. What led you to choose this industry and wanted to pursue it?
Oh, well, I'm a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, so I don't
I'm
prescribe
sorry.
medication. That's okay.
I've
Uh,
done a lot of interviews today, so psychiatrists and psychologists.
that's okay. So I'm a psychotherapist, essentially a trauma therapist, and I mean, I think what led me to this work is what leads a lot of people to this work is our own need for healing, right? And
Mm.
it sort of pulled me deeper and deeper in, and now I get to walk alongside my clients in their own healing, and it's the best gift ever.
I know you've been through a lot of your own trauma. Can you share some of that with us, please? And let us know when did you recognize it that you had these feelings and what did you do to work through them?
Well, to be honest, I couldn't say that I'd been through a lot of trauma for most of my life. And I think part of that is my training. And
Mm,
part of that is the way that we continue to, largely think about trauma today, which is based on single incident or acute events that everyone can agree is traumatic, right? We think about a car crash or a natural disaster or being in a war, and everyone goes, yep, yep, that's trauma. And so by comparison, it was like, Valerie, I didn't have trauma. Come on, right? Um, and so yeah, I'm really grateful for the work of the people that have come before me to start to define and talk about complex trauma. Judith Herman, coined that term, which when she started working with domestic violence survivors, and she was like, wait a second, their bodies are holding the same trauma as the veterans. And we need to expand this definition. We need to expand how we're sort of seeing and helping people. And, complex trauma is essentially ongoing, like pervasive threats to relational safety over time. So
mm,
things like immature parents or narcissistic or addicted family systems or neglect, even things like poverty and racism, right? It's sort of like trauma is not as unique as we once thought it was. It's anything that overwhelms your nervous system.
mm,
So when I could finally understand all of that, I could see how my symptoms from my childhood of growing up in a alcoholic, narcissistic family system where my stepfather was grooming me absolutely falls into the category of traumatic events. And then the way my body carried, stored, and played out those events over
mm,
time was what let me know that I had complex PTSD.
mm.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a trauma for
Yes.
sure. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, but I love that you explain the trauma in a way like these days, people, especially young people, they look at the little stuff like a trauma. But if you look at it, it's like, okay, don't call it a trauma until you said your body, you know what it is when it's a trauma, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. I'm gonna start with the question you talk about a lot. What is a gaslighting?
Gaslighting is when you take someone's experience and I'm going to take a step back for a second. I want
Please.
to think of the actual general definition. I haven't thought about it in a minute. It's manipulation, emotional manipulation designed to make someone question their reality.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it's deeply effective in terms of manipulation, right? So it's telling someone, well, that didn't happen when it absolutely happened. And it's doubling down. And no, you must be crazy and you're making it up and you're being so sensitive. You're being ridiculous. Those are all examples of gaslighting.
Oh wow. No, it's you imagining it. Like
Yes,
it's in your
exactly.
head. It's
It's
in
in
your
your
head.
head. Yeah,
Yeah. We hear these words all the time
that's right.
from our parents, from partners. So that's why I wanted to make sure the definition of that for our listeners to know what it is. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about more about that, but what is a fonding?
Fawning, the fawning trauma response. Well, we now know as an extension of fight, flight, and freeze, we've long heard about these trauma responses. Fawning is a relational trauma response
Mm.
where you lean in to the relationships that are causing you harm as opposed to leaning out in a fight or flight response. We lean in where connection is protection. So we caretake, we appease, we flirt, we flatter, we shapeshift in order to manage the relationship and hopefully mitigate the potential threat or harm.
It sounds like it could be with any kind of relationship.
Oh, yes, it happens in every
Family,
every kind.
family, and even work, right?
That's right. The workplace with family, culture, corporate America, it happens everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all systems of power invite a fawn response.
And another word, is it safe to say that like kind of like a people pleasing?
Yes, so I think we've long called fawning people pleasing or codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Those are symptoms of a fawn response. It's sort of the behavioral thing that we can see. But I like the lens and language of fawning because it puts these behaviors in the context of a nervous system, right? Our physiology. The root of
Mm.
this thing is not that we just have low self-esteem and we love caretaking and control, right? The roots are I'm powerless and I'm defenseless and my body is adapting to the environment that I'm in to keep me as safe as possible. And secondly, the fawn response puts these behaviors into a context, right? Again, it's about a dysfunctional or threatening environment. We can't just isolate these things in a person and be like, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you set healthy boundaries?
Right.
Because setting a healthy boundary or having a voice probably made things worse.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Mhm.
So it's like a almost subconscious response to
That's
body to
right.
do it.
Reflexive, instinctual, it's not conscious.
Okay. Just like when we, like you said, freeze or fight, we go when something happens, we don't have no control over it.
That's right. And the body chooses the response that will work in a nanosecond, right? It's not a conscious choice. The body kind of knows where you exist in the pecking order. And if a fight response is available to you, well, it's probably going to turn to a fight response. But when it knows, oh, no, fighting's going to make it worse, the body had to find another way.
That's so fascinating that the body actually decided, subconsciously to react to those kind of situations.
It's so genius, I think, right? And we've been shamed for these behaviors for so long. It's the other reason why I love this language because it reduces the shame. We go, not only do I make sense, but my body was protecting me. I mean, without my consent, right? Without my even knowing or understanding, my body moved into this response that was like, whoo, I have to manage this relationship in order to stay safe.
Mm. Is why is so hard for people to believe that when we get to a situation that is very obvious? You know,
Yeah.
we say, oh my God, like God forbid if it's a fire, you run, or if it's a car accident, you scream, or whatever. But when it comes to these type of situation, we kind of like feel like we should know it. We
Right.
shouldn't have done it. We should know it. We should be aware of it.
Yes. Well, I think the tricky thing about a fawn response is that it's kind of hiding in plain sight. So if you look at fight or flight, for instance, it's sort of obvious what's happening, right? And you
Mm.
are literally fighting against or escaping harm. With fawning, we are leaning into the relationships, but here's the thing: fawning is expected, it's rewarded. It looks like being a team player. It looks like going along to get along. It looks like being a good girl, a good daughter, a good friend, right? Like it is supported culturally and in the family. And so it doesn't look like a trauma response, not in the way we typically think of trauma responses. So I think that's why it's been missed.
And sometimes it can even feel good.
Yes,
Be-
but tell me more what you mean.
Well, if like you said, if you get rewarded for it, right? If you're like
Oh, yeah,
fawning, you get fawning, like you unawarely doing it, and the other person, reward you for it. They know
that's
that that's what it is, and you feel like I'm doing the right thing until you realize you're not.
That is exactly right. So many of my clients, when they start to understand the fawn response, they go, Ingrid, I thought I was just being a good person,
Yeah.
right? And the difference is because, of course, things like having empathy and caretaking and leaning in and all of that, like kindness, these are wonderful things. But with the fawn response, they tend to come at a cost. There's a self-abandonment that happens. It's like I'm showing up for you at the expense of me, right? So maybe we're bringing down the harm, but I'm also going against my values, or I know that I inherently can't bring all of myself to the table, so I'm not speaking my mind. I don't really have boundaries. So there's a deep sacrifice that's also made simultaneously, which is also how we know that it's a trauma response, right? Our body's doing the best thing it can do to keep us safe, but it's not a conscious choice because no one would choose to self-abandon. No one would choose that.
Mhm. But it has to take a couple of time for you to recognize that you're fonding. At I mean, what are some symptoms that you see on people that they realize they're saying that, Ingrid, like I need help, like I'm doing it.
I think conflict avoidance is a big one. If you feel like, ooh, I can't say how
Okay.
I really feel or what I really want. We tend to get smaller in relationships. We do a lot of the emotional regulation or the cheerleading or the management of the relationship. A lot of my clients are like, why can't I have just a healthy reciprocal relationship with folks? That reciprocity feels hard to come by.
Mm.
They tend to have a lot of resentments in relationship for that very reason, right? It's sort of like, when are other people going to step up? And they don't, because I say we're like Mr. Clean, we're mopping up all the messes, right? It's like that doesn't encourage anybody else to want to step in to do it because we've got it, right? We over volunteer, we overextend ourselves. There is this sort of like, oh, no, 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 no worry, I've got it, I've got it. So these are a few of the signs.
Do you see a pattern that women does more than men, or equally the same?
It is not a gendered response necessarily. I say it's an equal opportunity defender, but women are conditioned to fawn historically more than men, right? So men are more conditioned towards having a healthy fight response, right? Speak your mind, yeah, it's even with wrestling and tussling and being physical, or they're allowed to be angry. And with us, it's like, well, that's not ladylike, you know? A lot of even the synonyms for being feminine, I think, can kind of slot themselves into how we define fawning. And so I don't know that I've met a woman yet that doesn't identify with some aspect of the fawn response.
Well, I'm listening to you, and I'm realizing on my own how much I had,
Yeah.
because I've been through a lot of trauma, and like just when you describe it, it's like, oh my God, that was me.
Yes.
You know, as you
Yes.
listen to some, excuse me, sometime when you listen to somebody
Yeah.
and when you recognize within yourself, you're
Yes.
not even aware of it. You're like, huh, that sounds like me.
Yes. It's that resonance. And I encourage the listeners to pay attention if they're having a similar experience and to trust it. Trust it.
Mm.
Your body knows, right? There's a reason Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book is called The Body Keeps the Score. This is where trauma resides in the body. And so if your gut is stirring and you're like, well, I know what she's talking about. Well, fantastic, right?
Mm.
That's your entry ticket into owning this language and doing this work and availing yourself of the tools, the trauma-informed tools that are most helpful with giving us the freedom and the flexibility and the agency and the autonomy, like the reciprocal relationships, all of it, right? Like
Yeah.
not just about behavior change, like we'll just do X, Y, and Z. I know because I tried for decades, right? And I only felt more shame because it wasn't moving the needle. And it wasn't moving the needle because in my body, having a healthy fight response of setting boundaries or speaking up for myself, it still felt like that's going to make it worse.
Mm.
Right? So telling someone just to go do that in their relationships is go walk in the fire. Just come on, just go walk in the fire. And then we can't do it and we go, oh, what's wrong with me? I didn't have the hard conversation. There's nothing wrong with you. Your body learned that a hard conversation was going to get you burned. So, what we have to do is start small and internal. We don't start in our relationships, we start in our relationship to ourself. And we go, I have to build this new capacity internally now. And it's a process.
I'm glad you said that because my goal is for young adults to learn about these things now. Do you know
Yeah.
how many guests I bring here, Ingrid, and we talk about working within the self first?
Yes.
I think a lot of young adult in today's society
Mm.
get this idea that you have to do it with internally, not changing somebody. They're
Yeah.
doing this thing that I'm going to change this person. If I do
Yeah.
this, they're going to change, they're going to love me more, they're going to understand me more. But you,
Right.
like you said, is still in there and the body knows it and say, no, that's not going to help you.
Yes, that is another example of fawning as we go, well, if I help them, if I show up for them, they're eventually going to sort of come and show up for me. Or if I'm patient, or if I'm sweet enough, if I'm kind enough, right? And what we're doing, even in that example, you can see our compass, you know, uh, our vision is looking external for our needs to be met. We go,
Mm.
if you like me, validate me, give me permission, whatever the case may be, then I'll be okay. And so we have to arrest that feedback loop and stop bringing our entire focus externally. And
Mhm.
maybe for the first time ever, bring it internally. What do I notice? What is my body experiencing? What am I aware of right now? And those are different questions than what do I think about that? Because that brings us up to a cognitive, rational, conscious mind. But what do I notice? What am I experiencing? How do I feel about that? Brings us back into the body. And that's where the wisdom is. That's the practice.
I think disappointment is always the first when you get disappointed at first. for
Tell
me
me.
was for me was disappointment because I was in a relationship that I tried those things, like
Yeah.
I have to do more, I have to clean, I have to cook, I have to be there for him, I have to do everything. And he will change. You just had a bad day, you know?
Yeah.
You just had a bad day, or, his family was like this, or he's stressed, or he's tired, or maybe he's right and I should be doing this,
Mm,
this the way he want me to do. Maybe
yeah.
I'm too young because in my relationship, I was very young. He was older than me. And
Right.
I for the longest time, I just used that as excuse that I'm young. Like
Right.
he knows he's
Knows
older
better.
than, yeah,
Yeah.
he knows better. So my first sign was disappointment. I
Mhm.
got after a while I got very disappointed. I was like, I don't think he's gonna do it.
Yeah. And what you did, it sounds like, and this is so pivotal. And this is where I see a lot of people get stuck. We live so long in that place that you're talking, which is like, but he's older than me and he knows better. And maybe I'm being ridiculous. We're self-gaslighting. And it makes us shoo away the disappointment or the feeling that's coming up in
Mm-hmm.
the body. We dismiss it long before anybody else can. So the fact that you felt it and you lingered and you trusted it, maybe this disappointment is here for a reason, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying once we feel what we're feeling, it's always going to dictate our next move, but it is an important part of this internal compass. We can't do anything for ourselves if we're constantly shooing away our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, they know better and I'm being ridiculous, right? I
Yeah.
holding on to it. And yet, look how hard that is. No one wants to feel disappointment. Who wants to feel fear and resentment and disappointment and overwhelm? And our culture really supports it through toxic positivity, like, well, just let it go. And that's in the past and just forgive. And it's hard work to wade through all of that and choose over and over. I need to come back to myself. This is the primary relationship. I'm going to build self trust. And that means I'm going to trust that whatever emerges, I have the capacity to hold it. And I trust that it's going to take me to the next right step and the next right step.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard because I went through everything that you mentioned. I went through the guilt.
Yes.
At first it was disappointment. Then I went through the guilt. Then I went through the anger.
Oh,
Then after that, it was because I was physically abused.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But it was like, and then after that, it was good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I just, and I believed it. I
Yes.
believed it. And it was so funny because I had interview with one of the guests, and she's a relationship expert, and she said that there's no such thing as a toxic relationship because we
Mm,
have a choice. We have a
mm,
choice to leave, but we have to recognize that choice first. That's the hardest part. Once we recognize that, okay, you are
mm.
right, there's nothing wrong with you,
Yeah.
that is the hurdle you have to go through, then to say, okay, now I have a choice, I can make this decision ABCD.
Now I have a choice. Yes, no disrespect to your other guest at all, but what we know actually about trauma bonding and the cycle of abuse, which is intermittent reinforcement, right? I'm hating you and now I'm loving you, and I'm demeaning you and now you're the best thing. Oh, I didn't mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Brain associates the abuser as the rescuer when they come back and they say, I didn't mean it,
Yeah.
because it's such a relief to our system. We go from a state of literally feeling threatened to like, oh, thank goodness I'm safe.
Yeah.
This is a part of what keeps us stuck. The brain associates the abuser more with the rescue than with the
Mm-hmm.
one who caused the harm,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So I think that's why understanding again all of this information that we now have related to relational trauma is so important, right?
Important.
Yes, we have to take personal responsibility, but how can we if these things are in the driver's seat and we don't even know it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I talk about it all the time because, okay, once we get to that point, yes, there's a lot of resource out there that we can reach out for help and get help. But
Mhm.
before that, and I, in my podcast, I emphasize on, let's go before that. Do you know you're
Yeah.
in a toxic relationship? What
Yeah.
are the behavior? What do you should realize? And like you said, trusting your intuition. So for me, from a young age, it was a long time. I was there for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. So it's like on and off and on and off and on and off. And then finally the exhaustion came in. And it
Mhm.
was like, okay, now you have a choice. And the choice was not really good because I was a young single mother now.
Yeah.
Okay, now you go into society, it's like really not a good option over there. There's a lot of scary stuff out there too. But
Yeah.
then on this hand, you're here and this is live or die.
Right.
So either option is not very enticing. It's like if I stay, okay, for the rest of my life, I'm going to suffer with this. If I go, then I have to face another
That's right.
trauma. But at least I weighed out and I was, thank God, blessed enough to realize that and say to myself, okay, let's just start with this one. So that's what I want to emphasize for my listeners to
Yeah.
understand what are the symptoms? How do you feel? Why do you feel this way?
Yes. Yes. Thank goodness that you got out, but that you're here to also share your story. Because I think we can use language like trauma bond or fawning, but we go, well, I don't really know what that feels like. We can't
Hmm.
really see it in ourselves, which is why I wrote a memoir and not another clinical self-help book. And why even my book Fawning now is rooted in not just my personal experience, but 7 client stories that present very differently, right? Where they come from, what fawning looked like, and how they found their way through it. Because this is the thing that allows people to see.
Yeah.
They go, "Ah, it's that same thing." Like our gut is going, I know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
So, what a gift that you're able to articulate and share such a painful, but ultimately powerful experience of healing.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted my young listeners to realize it before it's too late. I mean, for me, I'm older now, but I went through it. But I want people, when you're young, when you're in your 30s, you're supposed to enjoy your life. You're supposed to be in a healthy relationship. You're supposed to, have fun, not think about these things. But I do my research, and the trend out there that a lot of young men and women are suffering in a relationship. They're being in a toxic relationship. They're being in a relationship is that as like a situationship. They don't know. They don't have the title. They don't know what to do. They're going back and forth and doing all that stuff. So we try to head it from every corner for you to realize where you are, how do you feel, what is the call, and then you can make that next decision and say, okay, I need to change.
Wow, amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference between narcissistic? I can't even say this word. Narcissistic behavior and emotional immaturity.
Oh, that's such a great question because I think they can present very similarly. Um, Emotional maturity tends to come, well, it's just exactly as it sounds. It's a kind of an arrested development, right? Someone does not have the capacity probably to hold space for their own internal experience, much less your own. So they're really operating from like a childlike, self-centered place. And when I say self-centered, of course, you can see how that shows up in a narcissistic framework. Um, I think one of the key differences is that, we don't tend to see, for someone who's been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, we don't tend to see a lot of insight into their behavior. So there's not a lot of change that can often happen. And I think there's more opportunity when people are emotionally immature, that they can get that language and maybe that information. And similar to what we're talking about, they can be like, well, gosh, yeah, I've never really felt like I've been able to hold and own and metabolize my own feelings. I tend to go from 0 to 10 really quickly, or I shut things down. They might be able to do more internal work and change their experience, similar to trauma healing. We know what's possible there.
Mhm.
Um, Less of that we see with narcissism. They don't see themselves as the problem.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's more like it's that they affect their exterior level of people around them, manipulation, kind of like a protecting themselves. That is your fault, not mine.
Yes, exactly. So they don't see that the problem is theirs. It's always projected externally, right? It's you're the problem. And that happens with emotional immaturity too. But like I said, there's a lot of overlap. I think what's more important than even kind of diagnosing or figuring out where someone's coming from is, can we notice the behaviors and where they harm us and what we need to do in response, right? Because that's
Mhm.
where we can change, is we can say, well, I can do my own work and I can grow my capacity to set healthy boundaries,
Mhm.
um, regardless of where their behavior is coming from.
So let's give an example for our listeners that if somebody is dealing with a immaturity of emotional immaturity versus narcissistic,
Mhm.
how would they respond to these people? They love them, they want to be with them, but they're to the level of like, I don't know how to respond to that.
And you're talking about in a romantic relationship?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think how we respond is, first we turn inward and we see what we're experiencing. And I think when we share from that place, it's always the most powerful. So it's not pointing a finger at someone and saying, well, you're emotionally immature and what's wrong with you? And this is how you're doing it wrong. It's that, this is what I experience when I feel like you're shutting me out or you're not available to hear me. I feel dismissed. I feel like I'm longing to feel closer and you keep pulling away. Do you notice that? What's your experience of those things? You bring your experience, I think, coupled with curiosity is a nice combination of inviting someone in to a conversation. And then notice what happens next. If you're constantly being curious and inviting someone in and sharing your experience and you're getting the same results, well, then again, I don't care if it's about emotional immaturity or narcissism or unresolved trauma, anything else. We have to go, I got to stop showing up for a conversation that's never going to happen.
Mm,
Right?
that's the key. Yeah.
That's really the key, is that we try and we lean in and we bring our maybe vulnerability and our whole self and our longings. And then we have to see how other people show up or how they don't and pay attention.
Right, right, right. Because you can't do that because then that becomes a burden.
That's right. You can't do anyone's work for them. It's just you cannot. You
Yeah.
invite them to do the work to be in a richer relationship with you. But at the end of the day, no one can do that work for someone else.
So it's safe to say that stepping back a little bit and just letting them figure it out on their own versus you keep enticing them to come in and invite them to keep talking about it, and just goes over their head. And it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know what you're talking about.
that tends to be the pivot point of, okay, I have to set better boundaries for myself.
So why there's so many people having a hard time setting boundary? How can they set a boundary without feeling guilty?
I don't think that should be the goal, to set a boundary without feeling guilty, because I'm going to tell you right now, especially if you have a chronic fawn response, you're going to feel guilty. So feel the guilt. And in fact, let that be an indicator that you're probably moving in the right direction, because it means that you're including yourself in this equation. That's why we feel guilty. We're so used to not including ourselves and prioritizing somebody else that the minute we bring ourselves to the party, it's like, this is so selfish. What am I thinking? I don't really matter, right? Even if we're not saying that, that's how we're feeling.
Right.
And so, honestly, we have to tolerate the guilty feeling and know that it's not an indicator that we're doing something wrong. It's an indicator that we're doing something new, that is brave. And can we just pause and be there? Don't take it back. Don't bulldoze, but just notice that.
Uh, because boundary is not just a word to set, like set somebody down, like these are my boundaries. It's more like an action taken,
That's
right?
right. That's right. It's half of boundary setting to me is doing exactly what I was just like exploring in my physical body. It's like, can I hold space for myself? Can I grow my capacity to tolerate discomfort? That's half the work of boundary setting. It's not
Yeah.
about learning how to say no.
Yeah, because a lot of people think that, oh my God, I have to sit them down. I have to have a conversation with them. I have to set my boundaries. But to me, boundaries like just an action and how you show up for yourself, and also has to have a consequences.
Well, I think the other place that people can get confused is they think if they set a boundary in the right way or with the right words or with enough compassion or whatever, then the person's going to do what I need them to do and show up for me.
Mm,
That's not a boundary. It's another example of a fawn response. I'm showing up so that I can hopefully get you to do what you need to do so you can show up for me. An actual boundary is I got to cut out the feedback loop. I don't have to
mm,
make sure that I couch it in the perfect language. I don't have to make sure that I catch you at the right time and say, right? I just have to say, I have to hold on to myself and really go, I don't know how they're going to receive it, but I know that I need to hold on to me and then do
mm.
that, right? It's a radically different orientation.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that because, like you said, a lot of people misunderstanding boundary by the loop of feedback.
Yes.
Like, I have to do this and you have to do that for me. But it's like, it's really just crash that off and say to yourself, I'm holding on to myself, that I'm good.
That's a boundary, holding on to ourselves, not whether or not you endorse my boundary, respect my boundary, follow through on my boundary. We go, I don't know what you're going to do with it. I know what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, that's when you take your power. That's when you
Yeah.
have the power within yourself. And that's why we keep talking about you can't control people, but you can control yourself.
Yes, but it's also hard to hold on to that discomfort, whether that's the guilt or the fear or the self-doubt. Like there's a lot of voices that tend to come in when you're holding on to yourself if you haven't before. This is some of the bravest, hardest work we can do, I
We
think.
can do. They leave me. I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah,
They'll
absolutely.
leave me.
Yes. Yes. And that might be a very real fear rooted in all kinds of things like financial support or access to a community or losing access to our children. I mean, it's big.
Emotional support, yeah, the fear of, because as a human we always want to be connected, we want to be around people, we want them to like us and love us, so fear of that alone is so hard.
It's so big. Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm like thinking about it and all the memories come back, that how I used to feel about that, like I'm gonna be alone, nobody gonna love me. I'm here. This was, I'm supposed to do this. Mine was more cultural too than anything else. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely it's a huge expectation that we have from other people
Yep. Yep.
that gave us the thing. So, what's the difference between PTSD and complex PTSD?
They share a lot of the same core criteria. I will say, interestingly, I think it's another reason why we're not really up to speed on this definition of complex trauma. PTSD here in the United States is in our DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Disorders. You can get a diagnosis of PTSD. CPTSD didn't make it into this latest round of revisions to our DSM. In other words, you can't get a diagnosis, right? So you're not going to get insurance reimbursement. You're not going to get continuing education for, mental and medical health providers. It's a real slap in the face, if I'm honest, to people that are suffering from unresolved complex trauma. The World Health Organization did add it to their ICD, I think 11, version 11, in the UK. And so there's some credibility. It's sort of like, okay, this is a real thing. So this is based on their diagnostic criteria.
Mm.
But there's mostly a lot of overlap with or excuse me, with PTSD. There's a re-experiencing of the event and flashbacks or emotional flashbacks, like fear of avoiding certain people, places, and things. Oh my God, it's going to happen again. But with complex trauma, there's also a real distorted sense of self, which makes sense given just this conversation, right? We go,
Mhm.
is it me? Am I the problem? Am I being ridiculous? There's a distorted sense of self, and there tends to be ongoing relational difficulties, which is where I lived for a long time. I was like, why am I dating the same person with a different face over and over and over? It's like their unavailability was different, whether it was just emotionally unavailable or actively alcoholic, a whole host of reasons. But I could not have a healthy, sustainable relationship to save my life. So that's the other core difference with complex PTSD, is that this is relational trauma. So, of course, it affects your relationships.
Mhm. That's so true. That's so true. What is the biggest misconception when it comes to trauma and abuse?
I mean, what comes to mind is what we've already touched on, which is that, um, you know, even something like emotional abuse isn't trauma. And I was literally told that in my childhood. I had a family report my family to social services, and they arranged for me to meet with a social worker. I was 10 or 12 years old. And I tell the social worker everything's going on at home. And she's there with like her clipboard, like, and asking me all these questions. And she keeps asking about physical violence. I'm like, well, there's not a lot of physical violence that I've seen. You know, my mom has black eyes, but I don't really. And she's like, okay, physical violence. And then finally she said to me, well, Ingrid, emotional abuse isn't reportable, right? So the people with the clipboards and the like, the gatekeepers to access to support were literally saying that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
And what we know now actually is that these types of hidden abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, the scars run so deep because they're invisible, right? It creates more of that illusion of like, well, maybe it's just me and I'm making it all up. A lot of people with emotional abuse in their history, they almost wish, and it's not to pit these groups against one another, but it's just to bring more sort of conversation online. They almost wish they had physical abuse or bruises so they could prove that, like, no, this is real, this is substantial, right? This is a real thing. So, again, I think it's the misconceptions are in our definitions of trauma. I'm also not here to say everything is trauma and everything is traumatic, okay? But I'd rather that we be more inclusive than gatekeepers and say, oh, it's only these things that if you ask 10 people, everyone's going to agree that's a traumatic event. Because the trauma is determined by how your nervous system does or does not process it.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
it's not even about the event at all, if we're real. It's about how an event overwhelms your nervous system.
Yeah.
That is trauma. That is the wound.
Yeah. Well, I've been through both physical and emotional. Like you said, physical, we see. What we see, that's what we believe, right? You see
Yeah.
yourself all bruised up and everything. But it makes you wonder a lot of people that are emotionally abused, they're the one that is comforting themselves with drugs and cutting themselves. I mean, look at the people that are cutting themselves, right? They
Yeah.
rather have that pain because it's distracting from the thinking of that trauma in the mind.
That's the coping. That's right. We have to turn to some other level of coping because we're not
Coping, right?
actually being attended to properly. We're not being
Yeah.
given actual resources, support, and compassion. So the
Hmm.
body has to do something to cope. And those are a
Yeah.
couple of ways, absolutely.
Yeah. And then because of that, people should realize how damaging emotional abuses, and like you said, it doesn't make it okay for physical, but I
Right.
personally, when the physical goes away, that pain goes away, but emotional just stays with you. And the worst part is, Ingrid, is that like not only even if you heal yourself, I don't know if it's true for you or I'm just feeling that way, but sometime even when you heal yourself, when you think about that moment, it still creeps in. You can feel it. You can feel it's there. Like it doesn't vanish and disappears
No,
completely.
it doesn't. One thing I talk about in fawning is trauma healing is moving away from this old paradigm that says you're broken or you're healed, right? Like you're healed or you're unhealed. It's not a black and white all or nothing endeavor. It just isn't. Healing can we create more flexibility in our nervous system? Can we have a lot more self-trust and agency? Yes, we can. But at the end of the day, we're always going to have a body and we're always going to be living in a world that, quite frankly, is unsafe a lot of the time. So
Hmm.
we're going to be triggered, right? Trauma responses are going to come back online. This is what it means to be living in the human condition. So, I don't like it when people sort of ascribe this like finish line to their process of like, whew, thank goodness, all done. I'm like, well, my hat's off to you, but I haven't met anyone in real time who has actually had that experience and
Not at all.
have to
Not
be
at all.
sustainable. It's like, well, I'm still a person. I still have a body.
And especially as science develop and we saying that how much brain can remember and how it goes to our subconscious once it become a
Mhm.
habit, what it goes to our subconscious. Okay, so let's just talk about living with trauma, emotional trauma for 10 years and it's embedded in your mind, in the
That's right.
brain, and the
That's
subconscious.
that's
You
right.
heal yourself. For me, the processes more look like, if I had to give you example of when I see it, It comes back. I recognize it, but I
Mm,
respond with more compassion.
there you go. That's it. That's everything. We change our relationship to ourself. So that's exactly right. Instead of reflexively turning to our old coping, right? Well, now I got to go drink. I have to go cut. I have to go, whatever it is. We notice it in real time eventually. And we go, I'm overwhelmed. I'm out to sea. I'm triggered. What are my actual resources that don't have such complicated repercussions?
Yeah,
Can I call a friend? Can I take a hot bath? Can I turn to bilateral stimulation to regulate my nervous system? Whatever it is, we have all of these amazing ways now to do it. And it's not a light switch, right? It's not a silver bullet that's like, oh, thank goodness I'm feeling fantastic now. But we bring down that overwhelm enough that we're back in our body in a way where we have more conscious choice and agency.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And just understanding others, like, being more sympathetic toward others. I think that's rewarding
Yeah.
because at some point you're and I'm sure a lot of listeners that are listening can feel that way. You're so resentful.
Mm,
You listen to it and you're like, yeah, 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 I have my own problem. Like,
right.
or we become like this thing, like, get
Yes.
over it. But
It can harden you.
I
Hmm.
think the healing process indicator that you are healed and you handling it much better is when you look at it sympathetically and you say to yourself, you know what? I understand. I understand how that feels like, and I can help you or you can help yourself. So for me, that was a big thing.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because before that, you sounds like you know it all. You knew, like, you're so hurt, you're so painful, but you project that to the world,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, that's
It's
common.
like, you
Mhm.
don't understand me. Like, you don't
Right.
understand me. You don't get me.
The pain feels very unique when you're in that place, right? It's like nobody gets it. And, nobody may ever get that specific type of pain, but the sad reality is that a lot of us are crawling out of something.
Yeah. So, how do you break the cycle of codependency and find healthy love?
Well, I think it's a lot of the things we've talked about. It's taking that external focus and turning it inward and noticing ourselves and doing it in safe places and safe ways. That might be writing in a journal. And if it's safe to have the writing in a journal, maybe you burn the pages when you're done, right?
Mm,
Maybe you write at the top of the page, like, if I was entitled to feel all of my feelings, if I had permission, what would I actually feel? We start carving out more space for ourselves first. That also might be physical space. It might be like, well, can I take a little bit of time before reflexively calling that person back because, they called me. I can't let a minute go by. I swear I used to not be able to like sit on a text message or a voicemail. I felt like, well, if someone's reaching out, I have to immediately get back to them. It's like a miracle to me that I can even go, oh yeah, they called me on Monday and I maybe haven't even listened to the message. It's not because I don't love them or I'm not interested. It's like I'm in my life, they're in their life. I'm allowed to take space, right? So taking this space allows for a sense of autonomy and more connection to self. And over time, this informs our more true and authentic responses in our relationships. I think if people identify with complex trauma or having a chronic fawn response, trauma therapy can be immensely helpful. So if you're looking for therapy or working with a therapist, I encourage you to ask them, like, how do you work with trauma? And they should know. They should know, either because they've received certain trauma trainings. There are specific modalities. IFS is a big one these days, internal family systems, or EMDR. They have all these crazy names. Somatic experiencing, SE. But these are just to name a few. And they're different than just traditional talk therapy, right? So I sat on a lot of therapist couches and I did not really move the needle in the way that I was longing to. But working with trauma therapists has helped a great deal. So I would recommend that as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And trauma is such a heavy word, too, right? Once you realize that, oh my God, this is coming back from my trauma. So just realizing that alone can help you so much. because a lot of people don't think that they had, like you said, it's really misunderstood.
I know. So even, going on, I'm on Instagram as a therapist and I share a lot of obviously free content there. And I think I'm amazed at how many other creators and people like yourself too doing podcasts. It's like there's a lot of good free information. But if you think, well, I don't have trauma, that doesn't apply to me, you're not going to be following those accounts and listening to that material. So I go, well, just go listen. See if you identify, see if there's anything there for you. And that is the indicator if you're meant to be in those spaces or not. It's like, don't prejudge, right?
Right.
Let your body go and experience the information and see how it washes over you. And then you can decide.
So let's use their language and speak their language so they can recognize if they can relate to any of this. A lot of my listeners are always asking these questions.
Okay.
Why do I only want people who don't want me?
I mean, I want to just jump and say childhood trauma. I mean, that there's your access to trauma right there. I mean, that is the most common reason, right? An explanation even for childhood trauma. Patrick Tien is a friend and colleague and expert in the field, and he says that's the number one way that he can identify a childhood trauma survivor. I'm trying to get a person who is not good to me to be good to me.
There you go. See, this is why that's their language. So once you realize that and you're
Yeah,
giving the definition, okay, light bulb.
yeah. Yeah, that's what that is. Your needs were legitimately not met. Your body learned how to cope with your needs legitimately not being met. And now it's playing out over and over because it's the only blueprint that you know. And so trauma healing is essentially getting a new blueprint.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I heard that so much. So, what is the difference between chemistry and capability in a person?
Oh, I mean, they're light years apart. So for me personally, that like, oh my gosh, all systems go chemistry, I thought that that was healthy chemistry. It was my only definition of chemistry. What I now know is that that was an indicator that old patterns were being ignited, that my body was going to go, oh, this time it's going to be different, right? That there were some building blocks of an old dysfunctional pattern and I was about to reenact it. That's exactly what those like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting chemistry was. And it was very confusing to me for a long time because I thought, well, I can't manufacture chemistry with someone where it isn't there, right? I
Right.
It felt sort of like, to be honest, it seemed boring or like, ugh. But here's the deal. When I met my now husband after leaving a marriage that was not healthy, um, we did not have that crazy chemistry that I was used to, but I had this sense of ease and calm and connection. And I didn't want our conversation to end. And I felt safe. And the more that I leaned in, the more I gave my body an opportunity to know the contrast, to know the difference between healthy, grounded chemistry and what was the old like fireworks, I don't know how else to describe it, but it was almost like game on back in the day. It was like that's an indicator that I'm reenacting my trauma. And when it felt sort of so accessible and easy, but also just delicious and lovely at the same time, it was like, this is healthy love. And it hasn't changed in over 12 years, right? So I go, if that's how it's felt for over 12 years, no crazy highs, zero lows. It's been even and delightful and it's a night and day difference from what I was used to.
Ingrid, I wish that for everybody that listening, because once you experience it, it's so beautiful. It's like if you're driving a car, you're not too fast, you're not too slow, you're just driving and enjoying the ride.
Yes, that's it.
So peacefully. And we're so lucky to get to that level. I mean, of course, me and you even
Oh,
did a lot of work to do, but I hope
yeah,
nobody goes through that to get to that level. But I always say to my clients and to my listeners, once you get to that neutral level, that is not too high, that is not too low, you're
yeah,
very neutral. Sometimes it might be boring. it's peaceful, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah. It's peace. That's the word.
That's it. When you feel peaceful
Mm.
for both of you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's the difference when it comes to chemistry. People like, I'm on cloud nine.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I was a little bit on cloud nine with my husband just because it felt so good, but it's such a different feeling to like when it feels like you've been rescued from your life and rocketed to another dimension. That's probably an indicator that it's going to be a trauma bond because, first of all, that level of high, high, high is not sustainable. So you have to ask yourself, when's the bottom going to fall out?
Yeah.
And it does. And it does.
And the more higher you are, the harder the bottom is gonna
I
fall.
know, the longer the fall. Oh,
Isn't it funny when you learn about it is one thing, when you go through it is
oh
something.
my gosh. Yes,
And
we are
Grid is like,
experiential beings, so we have to experience
oh,
really know. Yeah.
oh my God. Why does love feel like drug and how do I stop obsessing over it?
Oh gosh. I mean, you're asking a trauma therapist, so that to me is why does it feel like a drug? Because it's speaking to unresolved trauma. So how do you get over it is you stop focusing on the love relationship and you have to start focusing on your own internal healing. You have,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. We always come back to that.
Yes.
And this is how do I heal from attachment wound while dating someone else?
Oh, it's a good question. I think that you can absolutely heal attachment wounds in a relationship, but I think the other person has to also be on board. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You both have to be willing to be doing your own work. That can be a recipe for, both people absolutely growing and changing and doing it together. But if you're the only one who's doing their work, here's what's going to happen. We say in relationships, water seeks its own level, right? So you
Hmm.
tend to couple up with someone who's probably at a similar level of like emotional availability or functioning. If you're like, I'm going to heal, I'm going to change, and they're not, look what's happening. You're growing further apart, and that's going to be too painful. It's probably going to keep you stuck more than it is going to like lift them up. So we have to be honest with ourselves about not just what's happening with me, but what's happening in the big picture. Are we growing together?
So in that case, what about the people that are saying that, Ingrid, I'm kind of like in my own journey, I'm healing myself, I'm not dating, I'm not going out because I wanted to heal myself and then go. Would you recommend them to do that? Or just jump in the water and say, you know what, relationship, you just go and practice and be there and do it and catch yourself and learn?
I would say it's not a prescription. There's no one right way that is right for anybody. That's why this internal attunement is so important because some people might know I should not be in a relationship right now. I have got work to do. And I go, fantastic. That's where you are in your process. And other people are like, I've been doing that for a while. I think I'm ready to dip my toe back in. And I go, well, that's awesome too. So it's not about a path that fits every person. It's about following your own path and being really deeply honest with yourself about what you're noticing along the way.
Yeah. Recognizing the difference between being fearful, working on yourself too much to use that as excuse
Yeah,
to say not going
yeah,
to a relationship versus
right.
like you said, I'm comfortable, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna practice it and I'm gonna get better. I might even fall a couple of times, but
Yeah, yeah.
s-
And
s-
honestly, even if what you do notice is, well, I'm not doing it because out of fear, well, then great noticing. How do we take care of what's happening with the fear? How do we be present to that? Then you work with that internally.
mm, that's so true.
Yeah.
How do I know if I'm being love bombed or genuinely loved?
Oh gosh, it's such a big and important question that I'm not going to be able to answer succinctly. I just know it. Genuine love doesn't fall. I guess that's the thing, right? A love bomb is a part of that trauma bonding experience of the high, 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 high. Real love is not going to drop you. So, How do you know the difference? Wait 5 minutes. I mean, I'm of course being cheeky, but give it a little bit of time and see what the cycles are. Real love is an action, it's sustainable, it's that easy, peaceful, showing up, mature experience. Love bombing is not sustainable. So give it time and see. Notice what happens next. And then what happens? And how does that feel? There's a saying that we used to say in addiction recovery all the time, which is play the tape all the way through, right? Don't just keep rewinding the part that you want to listen to and go, no, 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 this is the only thing that's going on. Play the tape all the way through. What happens next? And then what happens? The answer is probably there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love bombing is like when everybody, like you said, from their part of always encouraging you and complimenting you, and you can never do nothing wrong, and lavish you with the gifts and stuff, and you're like, oh my God, they love me. But like you said, no, wait a little bit, see how fast that's going to fade away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they stop that, because in real love, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's not that people can't give gifts or bring praise, right? But it doesn't feel like you're not being like, it's not a stop and a start or like jerking you around or where you feel that inconsistency. Those are signs of love bombing or a trauma bond.
How do I know when is it time to walk away?
Oh boy, this is such a personal question too. I really hesitate to give blanket answers because I think what that does is it robs people of an opportunity to get quiet themselves and listen to what their
Mm.
body is telling them. So I can't tell you when it's time, but I can tell you that my hope for you is to create enough space and be curious enough about what is that like shaking in my belly? And what is that fear? What am I really afraid is going to happen if I leave? And be curious and explore all of those things for yourself. Do it with safe people, right? Again, this is where a good therapist can be helpful. And trust your own process. Trust your own process.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Yeah,
Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes
right.
shorter.
That's right.
What feels right for you?
Yeah, what feels safe, right? What feels safe, what feels right. Like there's a lot of moving parts there. So avail yourself of
Because,
support and then listen to.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we get manipulated by societal expectation too these days, which is a lot of good pictures out there, and you see it, and you're like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. But the old saying, the grass that always doesn't look green on the other side.
That's right.
You can get manipulated through those too, especially in
Yeah.
today's society, which is so much available, right? People putting
Yeah.
all their nice thing. I have a great relationship. I have this, and you compare. You
Yeah,
compare
and it's
yourself.
curated. Yeah, we say you're comparing their highlight reel to your behind the scenes, and it's never a fair comparison.
I don't look like that. I don't feel like that.
I look like my own highlight reel. It's like, no, come on.
Yeah, the energy that they put or the things. What if we love each other, but the chemistry is fading?
Oh, what a great question. Talk about it. Talk about it. What do we want to do about it? What might ignite our chemistry? What are we willing to try? When was the last time we felt connected? Can we do something like that again? I mean, I think that's what a wonderful awareness. I would just say mine it for all it's worth and communicate about it.
Curiosity, right? The,
Yeah,
the curiosity itself.
that's right.
What a wonderful thing to
What are
do.
you missing? What are you longing for? What is your partner missing? What are they longing for? What are the things you're not talking about? Like that just opens up all kinds of opportunities.
Ingrid, I always say that when you're in a healthy relationship, it's actually exciting and so fascinating because two people learning about each other,
Yeah,
and
forever.
it's so much fun, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
because two people can never be the same. You can live together, you can marry each other, but it's always that different little things that you see them and you're like, huh, I didn't know you like that, or huh, I didn't know I like that, and that curiosity thing can keep it alive.
And we
But
change over time too, right?
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah.
not the same person I was over 10 years ago. So
Yeah, so the change of that itself keeps it so exciting. Not when you're coming from a trauma. Now, when
Mm,
you're coming from trauma, it looks completely different. It comes overwhelming, it's pushing, it's working, it's pulling, it's like exhausting.
yeah, that's true.
You just run out of energy to even try to do it.
Yeah.
Is it true that we marry our parents?
I think it's often if you have unresolved trauma that we recreate it in all kinds of different ways. And that can look like marrying your parent. It can look like a paradoxical reenactment where you marry the opposite, right? It can look different. It doesn't map out completely one to one, but there tends to be elements that we're recreating with the idea that I'm going to master it this time. I'm going to do it differently. Like the body wants a do-over, right? Survival of the fittest means I'm going to figure this out like a problem the body has to solve. And it's very compelling.
So we start as saying that, the awareness of going through your trauma, recognizing your trauma, knowing that it is a trauma. I'm going to end our conversation with what does it look like when you know that you're healed to the point that is okay? What does that look like for our listeners that, okay, I'm good? Like I'm healed now. Now, I know you said that it's not
Yeah, it's
one
not
way
a
or
finish
other.
line, but I do think you're right that there are some indicators. And, I shared this recently with someone else in it, so it's coming back to me now. That as a therapist, I said, my job really is watching people fall in love with themselves. And what I mean by that is they have more self-love and compassion. They're not living in a state of what's wrong with me? I'm broken. If you knew the real me, right? I feel like a fraud. I can't get traction anywhere. That stuff really does change. And it changes primarily because our relationship with ourself changes. I know without a doubt today that I am not broken. Doesn't mean I'm not flawed or make mistakes or all of that. It means I know that I am not broken and I could not have said those words, right? I
Yeah.
have my own back. I have more self-trust than I've ever had. If something comes up for me in my body, I go, oh, that must be important, right? I wonder where that's going to take me instead of like,
Yeah.
that's gross or embarrassing or shameful. It's like, no, that's
Yeah.
me. It's a part of my human experience. How can I honor it? So those to me are there's some of the best signs anyway. I think they feel
Indicators.
so good. Yeah.
Oh, you said it beautifully because, like you said, the difference between like knowing that I am going to make a mistake, I'm human, but I'm
Yeah,
not broken,
that's right.
right? That
Yep.
feels great. Ingrid, thank you so much for being here with us and opening the door and giving the answer to the trauma that people can actually realize what it is,
Hmm.
how to recognize it, and what to do about it.
I hope so. Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you.